Hey guys, welcome back again to another exciting video. Here in today's video, we will tell you the life story of Pandit Ravi Shankar. Therefore, before we begin, if you are new to this channel and like the content what we post, then you should go and hit the subscribe button and push the bell icon so that you'll never miss these kind of interesting videos when we upload them. Let's get started. Pandit Ravi Shankar. Real name Robindra Shankar Chaudhary, spelled Ravindra Shankar Chaudhary, whose name is often preceded by the title Pandit, was an Indian musician and a composer of Hindustani classical music. He was the best known proponent of sitar in the second half of the 20th century and influenced many other musicians throughout the world. Panditji was awarded India's highest civilian honor, Bharat Ratna, in 1999. Panditji was born to a Bengali Brahmin family in India and spent his youth as a dancer touring India and Europe with the dance group of his brother Uday Shankar. He gave up dancing in 1938 to study sitar, playing under court musician Alauddin Khan. After finishing his studies in 1944, he worked as a composer, creating the music for the Appu trilogy by Satyajit Ray and was music director of All India Radio, New Delhi from 1949 to 1956. In 1956, he began to tour Europe in the American playing Indian classical music and increased its popularity there in the 1960s through teaching, performance, and his association with violinist Yehudi Menuhin and Beatles guitarist George Harrison. His influence on Harrison helped popularize the use of Indian instrument in Western pop music in the later half of the 1960s. He engaged Western music by writing compositions for sitar and orchestra and toured the world in the 1970s and 1980s. From the 1986 to 1992, he served as a nominated member of Rajya Sabha, the upper chamber of the Parliament of India. He continued to perform until the end of his life. Let's see his early life. He was born on 7th April 1920 in Benares, then the capital of the eponymous princely state, in a Bengali family as the youngest of 7 brothers. His father, Shyam Shankar Chaudhary, was a Middle Temple barrister and scholar from East Bengal, now Bangladesh. A respected statesman, lawyer, and politician, he served for several years as Diwan, Prime Minister of Jhalwar, Rajasthan, and used the Sanskrit spelling of the family name and removed its last part. Shyam was married to Hemangini Devi, who hailed from a small village named Nasratpur in Madra block of Ghazipur district near Benares, and her father was a prosperous landlord. Shyam later worked as a lawyer in London, England, and there he married a second time while Devi raised Pandit Ravi Shankar in Benares and did not meet his son until he was 8 years old. Panditji shortened the Sanskrit version of his first name Ravindra to Ravi for son. Panditji had 5 siblings: Uday, who became a famous choreographer and dancer, Rajendra, Devendra, and Bhupendra. Panditji attended the Bengali Tola High School in Benares between 1927 and 1928. At the age of 10, after spending his first decade in Benares, Panditji went to Paris with the dance group of his brother, choreographer Uday Shankar. By the age of 13, he had become a member of the group, accompanied its members on tour, and learned to dance and play various Indian instruments. Uday's dance group traveled Europe and the United States in the early to mid 1930s, and Panditji learned French, discovered Western classical music, jazz, cinema, and became acquainted with Western customs. He heard Alauddin Khan, the lead musician at the court of the princely state of Maihar, play at a music conference in December 1934 in Calcutta, and Uday convinced the Maharaja of Maihar, H. Maharaja Brijnath Singh Judev, in 1935 to allow Khan to become his group's soloist for a tour of Europe. Panditji was sporadically trained by Khan on tour, and Khan offered Panditji training to become a serious musician under the conditions that he abandon touring and come to Maihar. Well, that was Panditji's early life. Now let's see his personal life. Panditji married Alauddin Khan's daughter Annapurna Devi, Roshanara Khan, in 1941, and their son Subhendra Shankar was born in 1942. He separated from Devi during 1962 and continued a relationship with Kamala Shastri, a dancer that had begun in the late 1940s. An affair with Sue Jones, a New York concert producer, led to the birth of Nora Jones in 1979. He separated from Shastri in 1981 and lived with Jones until 1986. An affair with Sukanya Rajan, whom he had known since 1970s, led to the birth of their daughter Anushka Shankar in 1981. In 1989, he married Sukanya Rajan at Chilkud Temple in Hyderabad. Panditji's son Subhendra Subho Shankar often accompanied him on tours. He could play the sitar and surbahar, but elected not to pursue a solo career. Subhendra died of pneumonia in 1992. Ananda Shankar, the experimental fusion musician, is his nephew. Nora Jones became a successful musician in the 2000s, winning 8 Grammy Awards in 2003. Anushka Shankar was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best World Musician Album in 2003. Anushka and her father were both nominated for Best World Music Album at the 2013 Grammy Awards for separate albums. Panditji was a Hindu and a devotee of the Hindu god Hanuman. He was also an ardent devotee of the revered Bengali Hindu saint Sri Anandamayi. Panditji used to visit Anandamayi Ma frequently and perform for her on various occasions. He wrote of his hometown Benares, Varanasi, and his initial encounter with Ma. Varanasi is the eternal abode of Lord Shiva, and one of my favorite temples is that of Lord Hanuman, the monkey god. The city is also where one of the miracles that have happened in my life took place. I met Ma Anandamayi, a great spiritual soul. Seeing the beauty of her face and mind, I became her ardent devotee. Sitting at home now in Encinitas, in Southern California, at the age of 88, surrounded by beautiful greens, multicolored flowers, blue sky, clean air, and the Pacific Ocean, I often reminisce about all the wonderful places I have seen in the world. I cherish the memories of Paris, New York, and a few other places, but Varanasi seems to be etched in my heart. In his later years, he became a vegetarian. He wore a large diamond ring which is said was manifested by Satya Sai Baba. He lived with Sukanya in Encinitas, California. He performed his final concert with daughter Anushka on 4th November 2012 at the Terrace Theatre in Long Beach, California. Now let's have a look how Panditji used to train. Panditji's parents had died by the time he returned from the Europe tour, and touring the West had become difficult because of political conflicts that would lead the World War II. Panditji gave up his dancing career in 1938 to go to Maihar and study Indian classical music as Khan's pupil, living with his family in the traditional Gurukul system. Khan was a rigorous teacher and Panditji had training on sitar and surbahar, learned ragas and the musical styles Drupad, Dhamar and Khyal and was taught the techniques of the instrument Rudravina, Rubab and Sursingar. He often studied with Khan's children Ali Akbar Khan and Annapurna Devi. Panditji began to perform publicly on sitar in December 1939 and his debut performance was a Jugalbandi duet with Ali Akbar Khan who played the instrument Sarad. If you don't know what is Sarad, then you can click the link in description and check out the instrument. Panditji completed his training in 1944. He moved to Mumbai and joined the Indian People's Theatre Association for whom he composed music for ballets in 1945 and 1946. Panditji recomposed the music for the popular song Sare Jahan Se Acha at the age of 25. He began to record music for HMV India and worked as a music director for All India Radio, New Delhi from February 1949 to January 1956. Panditji founded the Indian National Orchestra at AIR and composed for it. In his compositions, he combined Western and classical Indian instrumentation. Beginning in the mid 1950s, he composed the music for the Apu trilogy by Satyajit Ray, which became internationally acclaimed. He was music director for several Hindi movies including Godan and Anuradha. Well, this was the struggle he had during his training. Now let's see what are the contributions we have received from Pandit Ravi Shankar. Panditji developed a style distinct from that of his contemporaries and incorporated influence from rhythm practices of Carnatic music. His performance began with solo alap, jor and jhala, introduction and performance with pulse and rapid pulse, influenced by the slow and serious Drupad genre, followed by a section with tabla accompaniment featuring compositions associated with the prevalent Khyal style. Panditji often closed his performance with a piece inspired by the light classical Thumri genre. Panditji has been considered as one of the top sitar players of the second half of the 20th century. He popularized performing on the bass octave of sitar for the alap section and became known for his distinctive playing style in the middle and high registers that used quick and short deviations of the playing string and sound creation through stops and strikes on the main playing string. Narayana Menon of the New Groove Dictionary noted Panditji's liking for rhythmic novelties, among them the use of unconventional rhythmic cycles. Hans Neuhoff of Music in Gegischt and Gegenwart has argued that Panditji's playing style was not widely adopted and that he was surpassed by other sitar players in the performance of melodic passages. Panditji's interplay with Alarakha improved appreciation for tabla playing in Hindustani classical music. Panditji promoted the Jugalbandi duet concert style and claims to have introduced new ragas Tilak Shyam, Nat Bhairav and Bairagi. V.K. Narayana Menon, director of AIR Delhi, introduced the Western violinist Yehudi Menuhin to Panditji during Menuhin's first visit to India in 1952. Panditji had performed as a part of cultural delegation in the Soviet Union in 1954 and Menuhin invited Panditji in 1955 to perform in New York City for a demonstration of Indian classical music sponsored by the Ford Foundation. Panditji heard about the positive response Khan received and resigned from AIR in 1956 to tour the United Kingdom, in Germany and the United States. He played for smaller audiences and educated them about Indian music, incorporating ragas from the South Indian Carnatic music in performance, and recorded his first LP album 3 Ragas in London and released them in 1956. In 1958, Pandit ji participated in the celebrations of the 10th anniversary of the United Nations and UNESCO Music Festival in Paris. From 1961, he toured Europe, the United States, Australia, and became the first Indian to compose music for non-Indian films. Pandit ji founded the Kinnara School of Music in Mumbai in 1962. Pandit ji befriended Richard Bach, founder of World Pacific Records, on his first American tour and recorded most of his albums in the 1950s and 1960s for Bach's label. The Birds recorded at the same studio and heard Panditji's music, which led them to incorporate some of its elements in theirs, introducing the genre to their friend George Harrison of the Beatles. In 1967, Panditji performed a well-received set at Monterey Pop Festival. While complimentary of the talent of several of the rock artists at the festival, he said he was horrified to see Jimi Hendrix set fire to his guitar on stage. That was too much for me. In our culture, we have such respect for musical instruments. They are like part of God. Panditji's live album from Monterey peaked at number 43 on Billboard's Pop LPs chart in the US, which remains the highest placing he achieved on the chart. Pandit ji won a Grammy Award for Best Chamber Music Performance for West Meets East, a collaboration with Menuhin. He opened a western branch of the Kinnara School of Music in Los Angeles in May 1967 and published an autobiography, My Music, My Life, in 1968. In 1968, he composed the score for the film Charlie. He performed at the Woodstock Festival in August 1969 and found he disliked the venue. In the late 1960s, Panditji distanced himself from his hippie movement and drug culture. He explained during an interview, "It makes me feel rather hurt when I see the association of drugs with the music. The music to us is religion. The quickest way to reach godliness is through music. I don't like the association of one bad thing with the music." In October 1970, Panditji became chair of the Department of Indian Music of the California's Institute of Arts after previously teaching at the City College of New York, the University of California, Los Angeles, and being guest lecturer at other colleges and universities, including the Ali Akbar College of Music. In late 1970, the London Symphony Orchestra invited Panditji to compose a concerto with sitar. Concerto for sitar and orchestra was performed with Andre Previn as conductor and Panditji playing the sitar. Panditji performed at the concert for Bangladesh in August 1971, held at Madison Square Garden in New York. After the musicians had turned up on stage for over a minute, a crowd of rock music fans broke into applause, to which the amused Panditji responded, "If you like our tuning so much, I hope you'll enjoy the playing more." Although interests in Indian music had decreased in the early 1970s, and the live album from the concert became one of the best-selling recordings to feature that genre and won Panditji a second Grammy Award. His demanding tour schedule weakened his health and he suffered a heart attack in Chicago in November 1974, causing him to miss a portion of the tour. The touring band visited the White House on invitation of John Gardner Ford, son of US President Gerald Ford. Panditji toured and taught for the remainder of the 1970s and the 1980s and released his second concerto, Ragamala, conducted by Zubin Mehta in 1981. Panditji was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Music Score for his work on the 1982 movie Gandhi. He performed in Moscow in 1988 and had first been there to play in 1954. His 1988 concert was performed with 140 musicians, including the Russian folk ensemble and members of the Moscow Philharmonic, along with his own group of Indian musicians. He served as a member of the Rajya Sabha, the upper chamber of the Parliament of India from 12 May 1986 till 11 May 1992, after being nominated by Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. Panditji composed the dance drama Ghanashyam in 1989. His liberal views on music cooperation led him to contemporary composer Philip Glass, with whom he released an album, Passages, in 1990 in a project initiated by Peter Baumann of the band Tangerine Dream. Because of the positive response to Panditji's 1996 career compilation in celebration, Panditji wrote a second autobiography, Ragmala. He performed in between 25 and 40 concerts every year during the late 1990s. Panditji taught his daughter Anushka Shankar to play sitar and in 1997 became a Regents Professor at University of California in San Diego. He performed with Anushka for the BBC in 1997 at the Symphony Hall, Birmingham, England. In the 2000s, he won a Grammy Award for Best World Music Album for Full Circle, Carnegie Hall 2000, and tutored with Anushka, who released a book about her father, Bapi, Love of My Life, in 2002. After George Harrison's death in 2001, Panditji performed at a concert for George, a celebration of Harrison's music staged at the Royal Albert Hall in London in 2002. In June 2008, Panditji played what was billed as his last European concert, but his 2011 tour includes dates in United Kingdom. On 1st July 2010 at the South Bank Centre's Royal Festival Hall, London in England, Anushka Shankar on sitar performed with the London Philharmonic Orchestra conducted by David Murphy what was built the first symphony by Pandit Ravi Shankar. Now let's see his collaborations. Beatles guitarist George Harrison, who was first introduced to Panditji's music by American singers Roger McGuinn and David Crosby, who were big fans of Panditji, became influenced by Panditji's music. He went on to help popularize Panditji and use of Indian instrument in pop music throughout the 1960s. Olivia Harrison explains, when George heard Indian music, that really was the trigger. It was like a bell that went off in his head. It not only awakened a desire to hear more music but also to understand what was going on in Indian philosophy. It was a unique diversion. Harrison became interested in Indian classical music, bought a sitar and used it to record the song Norwegian Wood, This Bird Has Flown. In 1968, he went to India to take lessons from Panditji, some of which were captured on film. This led to Indian music being used by other musicians and created the Raga rock trend. As the sitar and Indian music grew in popularity, groups such as the Rolling Stones, the Animals, and the Byrds began using it in some of their songs. The influence have extended to blues musicians such as Michael Bloomfield, who created a raga-influenced improvisation number, East West. Bloomfield scholars have cited its working title as the raga when Bloomfield and his collaborator Nick Gravenitz began to develop the idea for the Butterfield Blues Band in 1966. Harrison met Panditji in London in June 1966 and visited India later that year for 6 weeks to study sitar under Panditji in Srinagar. During the visit, a documentary film about Panditji named Raga was shot by Howard Worth, released in 1971. Panditji's association with Harrison greatly increased Panditji's popularity, and decades later, Ken Hunt of AllMusic wrote that Panditji had become the most famous Indian musician on the planet by 1966. George Harrison organized the charity concert for Bangladesh in August 1971, in which Panditji participated. During the 1970s, Panditji and Harrison worked together again, recording Shankar Family and Friends in 1973 and touring North America the following year to a mixed response after Panditji had toured Europe with the Harrison sponsored music festival from India. Panditji wrote a second biography, Ragmala, with Harrison as editor. Panditji had received numerous number of awards. Here you will find the list of them. On 9 December 2012, Panditji was admitted to Scripps Memorial Hospital in La Jolla, San Diego, California, after complaining of breathing difficulties. He died on 11 December 2012 at around 4:30 PST after undergoing heart valve replacement surgery. The Swara Samrat Festival, organized on 5 and 6 January 2013 and dedicated to Pandit Ravi Shankar and Ali Akbar Khan, included performance by such musicians as Shivkumar Sharma, Birju Maharaj, Hari Prasad Chaurasia, Zakir Hussain and Girija Devi. Well, that was the complete struggle of Pandit Ravi Shankar in his music career. We hope you have understood today's concept. If you have any queries, then feel free to contact us. You will find the contact details down in the description. If you have liked today's video, then don't forget to drop a like to it and share it with your family and friends so that even they get to know about our famous Pandit Ravi Shankar. To be notified when we upload these kind of interesting videos, you should go and hit the subscribe button and push the bell icon so that you will never miss them. You can follow us over Facebook and Instagram for more updates. Links are in the description. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next video very soon. Till then, you can watch the rest of the videos which are going to appear right now here on the screen. Enjoy it.